edition, almost said session, edition, I almost feel like that tonight with our subject, edition of Tuesday Live with yours truly, Earl Ofari Hutchinson, and we think it will be live tonight. Should the Los Angeles Police Department, back on the hot seat again in this case, take disciplinary action? Let's even take it another step further, a little bit stronger, that fire a police officer, veteran officer in this case, who writes a book, in this case, with a picture on the book, on the cover of the book, which the Los Angeles Police Department, the powers that be, consider to be unflattering, to say the least. Should the Los Angeles Police Department fire a police officer who writes a book criticizing the department and projecting an image that they consider unfavorable to them? Special twist on this is an African-American officer who wrote a book called One Time, the story of a South Central Los Angeles police officer. It's a tell-all from the inside, a gut, street-level view of the Los Angeles Police Department, and I must say it's a book that riveted me, kept me literally to my seat, kept me in my bed for my bedtime reading, couldn't put it down. Some of the things that he talks about in the book, it would literally, if you had any hair, or if you even got a wig, it would make it stand on your head. The story of a South Central Los Angeles police officer. What made this so compelling was, in addition to some of the chilling things in the book, that this officer, and his name is Brian S. Bentley, he's up on charges now, he's been relieved of duty because of the book, and he's under fire for his fire. But I have to tell you, one thing about the book that's very intriguing and about his story is not in between the covers of the book, but there's a twist. It is the cover of the book. On the cover of the book is an individual, Los Angeles police officer, in this case Brian S. Bentley himself, in full LAPD regalia. He has his uniform on, he has his badge on, it's him, but he's got something else. He's got a gun, and he's pointed it at the head of what purports to be a gang member who's prone out on the ground. Gun, badge, uniform, gang member on the ground, gun pointed to the head. This is one of the major things that got Brian Bentley in trouble with the Los Angeles Police Department. This image of the LAPD, which they've spent years and years trying to get over, trying to get away from, once again, LAPD officer, gun to the head of a suspect. In this case, what kind of image does that project? What kind of image does it say? What kind of statement does it make? But there are other issues involved too. First Amendment issues, freedom of speech, the right to criticize, the right to have a book that is critical and takes a very, let's put it this way, another look at the Los Angeles Police Department, one which the LAPD has spent a lot of time, has invested a lot of money, a lot of effort in trying to clean up. Much more on that, and we'll have Brian Bentley on the line too a little bit later. But first, those that listen to Tuesday Live know that we have to take care of a little housekeeping business first. We've got to get a few things off our chest. Maestro, and paints the department in an unfavorable light. There's a lot of issues here. First Amendment issues, the right of censorship, the image of the Los Angeles Police Department, and I might add, in the book there's some very graphic, and I mean graphic details about the operations at the street level. We're not talking about upper levels, command structure, administrative rules and regulations. We're talking about nitty-gritty at the street level, how, at least through the eyes of this officer, based on his experiences, how they operate, and especially the little icing on the cake here, subtitled, The Story of a South Central Los Angeles Police Officer. Very graphic. And as we get into it, I'm going to read a couple of sections from the book, just to give you an idea, flavor it a little bit, to let you know where Brian S. Bentley's coming from during his 5-6 years on the Los Angeles Police Department, and also give you a graphic, street-side view of what it's like to be a cop out on the street, especially, as we know, quote-unquote, in the war zone, South Central Los Angeles, so-called. We're going to be back in a few minutes, and to set the stage first, we're going to have just a few words from Leonard Ross, who is the president of the Oscar Joe. I once said, if I can change one person's life around, then I've made a difference. So far, the only attitude in life that has been changed is my own. I never thought I'd enjoy running through the darkness of night after armed and dangerous criminals, nor did I know I'd get gratification from using physical force. My faith in the South Central Los Angeles community has vanished. The way I view the Los Angeles Police Department and those who carry out its functions have changed. Although I may not be happy with the Los Angeles Police Department, I still love the power and authority my story of a South Central Los Angeles police officer. Again, the author is Brian Bentley. This is a book that's got Brian Bentley in hot water. Unflattering, let's just be candid, very critical look from the street level. A view of the Los Angeles Police Department. This author, this Los Angeles police officer who's been on the force 5 to 6 years, wrote this book based on his experiences in South Central Los Angeles. So why didn't you shoot him when you had the chance? This is one officer talking to Brian Bentley after he apprehended the suspect. Because I didn't feel like my life was in immediate danger, I answered. So what? You could have justified it. That's all that matters, another said. He would have shot you if he had the chance. Besides, if you would have killed him, the homicide detectives would be taking the report instead of you. You would be at home right now drinking a beer, someone said. Dead men don't complain. It's better for us guys to just go ahead and shoot, and I won't use this word, it's an expletive, so they won't make up another expletive and try to sue us. If the officers in this division, unnamed, would have shot Rodney King, then all this mess wouldn't be happening now. He would have been dead. No, he should have been dead before the camera started rolling. This is again an excerpt, graphic excerpt, detail from his story one time. The story of a South Central Los Angeles Police Department officer. As a result of that, he's in trouble now. He's facing charges. Brian Bentley, we have him on the line now, is the officer in question who wrote the book, One Time, the story of a South Central Los Angeles police officer. Brian S. Bentley.
How you doing?
Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you.
Brian, let me start by, I read a couple of excerpts, and I'm going to read a couple more before the evening is over.
Okay.
And at this point in time, you have been relieved of duty.
That's right.
You are waiting the outcome of a hearing that's tentatively scheduled for April 9th.
Right.
First question, right off the top, why did you write this book?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, the police department has spent lots of money and went to the extreme to try to promote the department as being positive, and all along they've been saying that police officers do not use excessive force and they're not verbally abusive to people. And I've grown up and lived in Los Angeles all my life, and I know that that is not true. And I know the department can't improve its relationship with the black community unless it tells the truth. And the reason I wrote the book is I didn't want to say no, police officers aren't violent or verbally abusive. And my book was trying to illustrate through a story that sometimes it happens, but let me tell you why. What is the psychological steps that we go through to become that? From the time we're in academy till our first call, you know, what makes a police officer like that? Most people think it's racism or hatred, but it's not. It's really frustration and anger for what we experience on the job. My book is not anti-LA police. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's pro-police, but I'm giving you an insight and trying to explain why these things do occur. And if we don't admit that this happens, we're never going to come up with any type of cure.
Well, one thing I did note in going through the book, and I have to say this, there was a mixture of sadness on my part, regret in some ways, obviously, that these things happen and had to happen, especially involving you. But another thing, when you said before, it certainly could not be construed as anti-LAPD. It's just really your view based on your experiences. And I would say this, in line with that, it seemed to me that you were in many ways going into the department with in your mind, I want to help the community. I want to serve the community. I think by being in uniform with this badge and this gun, I can in fact perform a service for the community. And in fact, you saw the LAPD as being a vehicle for that. And something else too, I detected that in many cases, you with great relish, you know, did some of the things in terms of apprehending suspects. In one scene, there was involved a physical altercation, probably several physical altercations that you were involved with. And it seemed to me that in your mind always, this is a thing where I'm protecting and serving the community, not always, you know, looking over my shoulder about the Los Angeles Police Department. So I got that out of the book too. You went in with the service idea with the LAPD, is that correct?
Exactly. When I came on the job, I came on strictly to help my community. And I honestly believe, you know, being young, that I could actually do that. But, you know, when you get into the department and you start feeling all the frustrations, you know, all of a sudden you start to change. And it takes you through a psychological process where you kind of give up hope. And once you give up hope, you're not the same person anymore. You become angry, frustrated, and that frustration is taken out on the citizens. And, you know, I always thought that I could use my verbal skills to talk people into going to jail, and I really thought that I didn't have to use force to make an arrest. But, you know, there's times where that happens, and when it did happen for the first time, I realized that, it was enjoyable. And unfortunately, that's not why I came there, but you have to be honest, and I have to be honest with myself. It was exciting, and that's what I looked for every night. And that's what the department needs to show people that, there are problems that police officers have. That's why so many of my coworkers are alcoholics and abusive to their wives, because they're not being honest with their feelings. And the department is still trying to portray this image where we're just happy and just these ironclad officers, when really what we need is more psychological counseling on the job.
Well, one thing in line with the other part of that you just said about abusive to their wives and significant others, as you know, there is certainly from published reports a number of incidents that have happened involving the Los Angeles Police Department, and I know that you are also right now working on another book which will look at that. But I want to read an excerpt here from your book, One Time, the story of a South Central Los Angeles police officer. I'm talking with Brian S. Bentley, who's now facing charges for writing his book. And the allegations are that he, in this case, not so much the book, although the suspicion is that since it was critical of the Los Angeles Police Department in many respects, that's an underlying motive for bringing up charges. However, the immediate charges are because of the use of a uniform, badge, and gun. The allegation is unauthorized use. But on this note about sexism, this is an excerpt from the book. When I said before, it's very, very graphic. He pulls no punches. He just lets it fly based on his experience. One time, I was approached by an older veteran. He spoke of my training officer. I feel sorry for you because you have to work with that B. She's effing worthless. Sadly, I once overheard a veteran training officer say the only purpose a woman has as a police officer is to give her male partner oral sex in between radio calls. So, again, these are the kinds of things that Brian S. Bentley, in his book, One Time, the story of a South Central Los Angeles police officer, has, in fact, gotten him in hot water. Brian.
Yes.
And based on this, and I said before reading the book, even though I could see where the Los Angeles Police Department wouldn't like it, who would like it? After all, look at some of the things that are in the book and also the cover itself. But what has been the response, not from the higher-ups, but from those that you have spoken with, either within the Los Angeles Police Department, and I know you have a great deal of contact with other officers in the Sheriff's Department and probably other departments too. What's been the response?
Well, my coworkers, a lot of them give me silent support. They'll come up to me in the hallways, excuse me, and whisper, "Hey, I'm behind you all the way," but then they'll walk away. But nobody really wants to be seen with me. But they give me that silent support. I've received a lot of letters from the Sheriff's Department and a lot of phone calls from the Sheriff's Department and also from the Fire Department, who are very supportive and outwardly supportive. And they always say, if there's anything we can do, we'll be right there, behind you. So I've received a lot of support like that. And also from, a lot of citizens, too. I've received a lot of fan mail,
Well, once again, from the point of view this time, and by the way, we did invite Chief Parks to have a few words, but he declined. We did not get a response, and that's to be expected. The board hearing hasn't happened. Needless to say, he's not going to comment on something when you've got administrative action still pending. Do you expect to retain your job on the Los Angeles Police Department?
I figure that this will have to be probably settled in court. Now, let me, you mentioned so much about the cover. Let me tell you why I chose that cover, because I did the whole designing of the cover and everything myself, the graphics. The reason I chose, well, first of all, the cover is not an authorized photo, because I did consult with press relations before the book came out, and they gave me the standards and the guidelines of how to make a book presentable, well, not presentable, but that would pass the standards. They had a different opinion once the photo came out, and I have a opinion that the person who gave me the approval is probably answering some questions right now to the chief. But once the book came out, they had a second thought. Now, the reason that I did chose that particular pose is because that photo of a police officer and a gang member, 40 ounce and a gun, that's the stereotype that most people have of South Central Los Angeles. That's the stereotype that most officers who come from Idaho have when they come to Los Angeles to be police officers. They think that's what they're going to see, that's what they're going to get. But if you read the book, what you find out is that most of the calls are not gang-related. They're family disputes, which is the same that you receive all over the United States. In West LA, Bel Air, same type of calls, family disputes. And that's part of the frustration that officers go through, because you think you're going to come out of the academy and be a gunfighter, but you come out and you're a social